be installing this keyboard. Pop open the battery cover, remove the battery. We're going to need 2 screwdrivers. One's a regular Phillips head, one's a magnetic one. I never suggest using magnetic screwdrivers on MacBooks except for this one instance to replace the keyboard. This first screw that we're taking out here in the corner, this is the short one. The next 3 out of the 4 set are going to be the long ones. We're going to take them out, put them over inside here. These 4 screws will be taken out next. This one that I just took out, second one, this third one, and this fourth one. Those 8 screws will get the cover off. The first cable we're going to disconnect is the peripherals cable that's in charge of the iSight network card. What you want to do is you want to put your finger underneath it and gently pinch it and pull it to the left. Second cable is the speaker cable. I like to take the screwdriver gently, not touching the motherboard, putting it underneath and just putting my finger on top and pulling it. Be very, very careful when you're pulling out these cables, simply because if you break one of the sockets, you're going to have to take your motherboard in for a professional repair. I'm just going to go down the road here. This is your CD-ROM, DVD-ROM drive cable. This here is your hard drive cable. Again, when you're pulling these cables, make sure to gently pull them up. Now here, this cable is in charge of your indicator light, and this cable has a little lever. What you want to do is you want to get your nail underneath the right side and just, let me see if I can, and just pull it up. You can see there's a little tiny window here. It's like an eyelash. Once you pull that up, you can go ahead, grab the cable a little bit and pull it out, or just put some weight on it and push. Okay, that's out. Next is your trackpad. This is your trackpad cable. Get your nail underneath and just pull up. This is your keyboard cable. Again, it's an eyelash cable, so you want to pull the lever up and then gently work the cable out. I'm using a screwdriver here to get underneath and just pull it out. Make sure the eyelash was pulled up. This right here is where the LED lights for the backlight are going to be plugged into. Another eyelash cable. This cable right here is your battery indicator. Cable we're pulling out is your LVDS cable. You want to take this flap, this plastic flap. If you don't have one, that's fine, but if you still have one attached, pull it up a little bit and then push it over to the right. Now you can just take your LVDS cable and push it over on the side. Okay, at this stage, we're going to unscrew the speaker. I like to leave the speaker screws plugged in and just push it over to the side like so. Next thing we're gonna unplug is this cable right here. I like to put the screwdriver underneath very gently and just pull it right up. This fan has 3 screws, one right here. Again, I'm unscrewing it, but I'm leaving it in. Then I like to take the fan, pull it up with all 3 screws still attached, put it over on the side. The next thing we want to do is we want to unscrew this cable placement. As you can see, this one's cracked. It's supposed to have 2 screws, one on this side and one on this one. But it still serves its purpose, so we can just unscrew it, take it, and put it over on the side. Now what we're going to do is we're going to get to this. There's a screw right here. There's a screw right there. That's the one we want. We're going to unscrew it. We're going to leave it in place. The second screw for the CD-ROM drive is right here. Set it down on top here. And then the third and the final screw for the CD-ROM drive, this main one holding it in, I'm going to sit right there. Now we're going to lift up the drive and pull it out of the way. I'm going to take this screw, I'm going to place it back in its little hole. That way all 3 screws again are attached and I know exactly where they're going to go. Back to the motherboard. We're going to undo these 2 screws. 1, 2, and we're going to lift up this little plastic piece that was holding in the keyboard and the backlight. Take out the memory module. 1, memory module 2. And now for the motherboard. Start with this screw here. Now what I like to do for the motherboard, taking one of the panels here, okay, and I'm gonna create a placement where I got these screws so I technically can remember exactly where they came. We'll see what I mean in just a minute. As you can see here, I placed the screws out the way in the same shape as they screw into the board. Now that all the screws are done, we can just lift up this board. Now here's where things get a little tricky on these 2008 models. This cable right here is plugging right inside of the board. I'm going to take the screwdriver here, place it underneath this cable, and we want to pull it towards us. And it comes popping out just like that. Now that that's done, we can lift up the board, but just remember there are still a couple of different attachments to the board. So what we can do to just replace the keyboard is we can push this over on the side just like that, and we can commence our work in the keyboard. What we want to do here is we can see there's a tiny little piece of tape right here that's plugging into the microphone. We want to gently peel the tape off, take our screwdriver, push it underneath the cable, and pry that little cable out. Pull the power cable here, and the motherboard is out. Once we've gotten the motherboard out of the way, we can go ahead and remove the wall. Wall is being held in by 2 screws. Take this wall and put it on the side. The next part is to get to the power button here. This power button is being held by 2 screws. Once those 2 screws are out, this piece of tape comes right off. Okay, and this is where the fun part begins. The first layer, and get underneath to the plastic layer. This should just peel right off. This is where our magnetic screwdriver becomes very useful, because for every other key on this keyboard there's a screw, and we have to undo them all. Okay, now we can lift the keyboard up. Time to put in the replacement keyboard. Now it's time to place the backlight. The backlight should all be glued together, but in case it is not for you, you place the black cover, black side down first. Next goes the plastic cover, and then third goes the black cover with the LED light. What you want to do is, you see these 2 holes. There's one right here, and there's one right there. On the keyboard, you can see there's a little guy right there, and a little guy right there. What you want to do is you want to line them up. Got one. Now, just need to line up the next guy. Right there. That looks good. Let's screw in the power button. One and two. Screwing those two screws in exactly where we got them from. Let's start off by putting back the wall. The wall has two screws. Now let's put back the CD-ROM. What we want to do here is reattach the microphone cable. Once we have the microphone cable reattached, what we want to do is we want to tuck it into the speaker. Right along the line here. As we're doing that, we want to go ahead and plug in the power cable. Feels a little tight, but it's just fine. Now what we want to do is we want to take the board and put it in to its slots where all the peripherals plug in at an angle, and then what we want to do is we want to gently plug in the following cable. This is kind of tricky because you have to line it up at an angle and then push it into its proper location where we pulled it. But it looks hard, but it's very possible and very easy to do once you do it a couple of times. Now that that cable's in, we can go ahead and with this hand move all of the cables out of the way and just drop that board in. And now we can go ahead and screw the board in. Make sure that none of the cables got stuck underneath. Everything's exposed. Yeah, looks good. Let's go ahead and screw the board back in. Here are our screws that we set up initially. We'll start with the top. It goes here. The left goes here. That goes here. Goes here. And this. It goes right here. The fan goes in next. clip this guy in. Clip the fan in. And click in the optic drive, the hard drive. With your finger here, you want to try to get it to slide right underneath there. And just like that, slide it into the hole. And then you just want to make sure it's nice and tight in there. It can't go in there any further. And then you want to just push on the eyelash. That's it. It's locked in place now. We can go ahead and put in the trackpad. That just goes over in the top, and then you press it until you feel like it's firmly in there. Next, the keyboard. Same procedure. This gets a little tricky. You can actually, I wouldn't suggest using tweezers, although I have before. You can use any plastic part, or I just like to do a combination of taking the screwdriver, giving me some slack by pressing upwards with the screwdriver, and then just pushing that right in, just like that. And now you can just push the eyelash over. Next, the LED light. Okay, that looks like it's in there. Now let's put down the eyelash. That looks good. Alright. So let's finish off by plugging in the LVDS cable. I think this one on this particular unit is a little short, so I'm just gonna unscrew that to give me some playroom. That right in there. Lay the flap back down, lock it in. Reinstall the memory. Put the cable cover on for the trackpad and the keyboard. This one is an old crusty one that's fallen apart, but that's okay, it should still be able to hold. Let's do the middle screw first, so it's nice and tight in place. And then we just go right down, 2, 3 long screws, and 1 short one on the left here. Now for the small screws. Place our battery back in, connector. Now, this is not sitting right. You want to undo the hinge so the battery can drop in. Place the battery cover. Close this unit up. Flip it over.